This is the last chapter in a series of videos in which I'll be describing the controls in Morphine's interface. In this chapter, I will cover the DSP effects that are available. It comes with chorus, delay, reverb, and equalizer sections, before finally routing the audio through the ADSR controls and going through the amp section. Firstly, I'll have a good look at the chorus. Chorus is an effect that takes the original sound, detunes it slightly, then delays it a slight amount, and mixes it back in with the original sound, so the resultant sound has a shimmering quality to it. It happens naturally, for example, when a group of people sing the same song at the same time, or there's a single group of musicians that are all playing the same line of music. A piano produces a similar effect when played. However, when you play a note on the piano, it strikes 3 strings to produce a note, but has no difference in timing. In Morphine, the chorus comes with 3 different controls: depth, rate, and mix. The depth control controls the actual amount of the chorus sound, can vary from the original. The rate is the speed at which the chorus will go through a cycle, and the next control determines the amount of wet or dry signal that is passed. The mix control is also common in both the delay and reverb effects, and acts identically in all of them. The second effect is delay. It produces an echo type effect. The stereo knob on the interface controls 2 different parameters. When it is placed dead center, there will be no panning of the echoes. And moving away from the center point produces a ping-pong effect. The direction from the center point determines at which direction the first echo appears to be coming from. Feedback controls the amount of the signal that is fed back into the delay. With no feedback, there will be only 1 echo. As you increase your feedback, you also increase the number of echoes that you will hear. Lastly, the mod depth control controls the modulation of your echoes to produce more complex patterns. Reverb is an effect that we will experience on a day-to-day basis. When you hear a sound, you also hear its reflections from the surfaces around you. Although it appears to be one sound, it is in fact made up of the original sound and the sounds from the reflected surfaces. When working with software instruments, it could be a good idea to add in a certain amount of reverb if you want it to sound natural. Our ears become very well trained over the years to be able to filter out these sounds. But when you don't hear them, then it's the lack of presence that becomes obvious. If you're using Morphine as a plugin, you may wish to use the reverb available in your host application. There could be several reasons for this, and you can turn on or off any individual effect by clicking on the buttons here. The decay control itself determines the perceived size of the area the sound is in. Moving on to the high cut control, this affects the brightness of the reverb sound. Different materials will make the reflected sounds sound different from others. As you turn this up, this changes the brightness of the sound by reducing the higher frequencies of the reverb sound. Think about it this way. If you talk in a bare room without any furnishings, it will sound completely different from that of a fully furnished room. The last effect in this chain is the equalizer. This allows you to vary a band of frequencies by a range of plus 12 decibel gain to a minus 12 decibel cut. Many people will recommend that you cut from the frequencies that you don't need, rather than boosting the frequencies that you wish to stand out. And there's good solid audio theory to back this up. At the end of the day, however, it is entirely up to you. And I'm a great believer in the phrase that if it sounds good, then it is good. You also have control over the ADSR envelope, allowing you to further shape the sound by altering its attack range, along with the decay time, the sustain level, and the release time. In sound generation terms, a short attack time will make the sound more percussive, whereas longer attack times will allow for a more swelling sound as the sound gradually comes in. I'll show you examples on how you can manipulate the envelope section in the later videos on the actual sound generation. Lastly, the sound is passed through the amp section that contains a drive and master volume control. That brings us to the end of this chapter. And so far, we have covered all aspects of the Morphine interface. But what about actually using it? Well, in the next few videos, I'll give you a few examples of generating sound in Morphine, which will give you a better idea of how to design your own patches.